Hey guys, so I'm really running out of content here. I'm in the process of several different videos at once, including a full-length album. So today we're going to be taking the free personality test, the first result when you Google personality test. I'm sure many of you have taken it before, but here's my personality. We're going to see. Yes, I'm curious too. I'm the most curious of all because I don't know what it's gonna be. I have no idea who I am. I mean, I've lived some real shit and I've taken a lot of hits, and I've had valleys and peaks in my life. Our identities are always evolving, and it's important to, keep things in check and ask yourself some questions that allow you to reflect in a state of calm. Alright, here we go. You enjoy vibrant social events with lots of people. Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I wouldn't be there unless I wanted to be there, right? And here's why that is, because usually before I go to a social event, I like to make sure that it checks all the boxes. I like to know where I'm going. I like to know the type of environment it's going to be. In some circumstances, I even like to know the people that I'm with, although obviously that's asking too much. But I think it's enough to know the sort of setting and, what drinks are being served and stuff like this. And, I usually have a good time. I'm an easygoing fella in public, and I very much enjoy that atmosphere. I don't like loud environments like bars where it's just all dudes and like a few chicks off to the side trying to hang with the dudes. The type, the after work bar. It's way too packed, and it's just you can tell it's just the town bar. It's the town pub. But I do like in the cities, you'll have a lot more variety. You'll have the dive bars. I love dive bars. I'm a real fan because they're just quiet, and you have the regulars, and they have witty anecdotes, and you can tell they've lived through some shit. And, I like a calm atmosphere where you can tell a story. But on the other hand, when the moment calls for it, obviously not now because of COVID season, but I also like, a rave, something like that. If there's like a really good DJ, a really good acts playing, it's gonna cost you some money, including drugs and everything else. But that's also a good time. So yeah, I mean, it really depends on planning and planning for transportation, obviously, and stuff like that. You often spend time exploring unrealistic yet intriguing ideas. I mean, what's unrealistic? What's your definition of that? If something intrigues me, it shouldn't matter whether you think it's unrealistic, whether you think it can be done. There's a lot that we can do. I usually tend to apply a certain amount of reality. Like, for example, I'm not into this sort of childish, like, fantasy shit, like, Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I'm not a fantasy novel fan or a manga fan, or stuff like this. I'm not a fan of subcultures that pretend to be things that don't exist, like the furries and the other kin and all. I mean, that's something else to me. I do, you know what? I'm gonna slightly agree because, of course, if something intrigues you, you should go for it. There's no reason not to. It doesn't matter what anyone else says. Fuck them. Your travel plans are more likely to look like a rough list of ideas than a detailed itinerary. Well, I do like to have I do like to plan things, but I also leave enough space for improvisation. Like, if, for example, if I cannot plan. Like, I don't plan restaurants usually. If I'm in a foreign country, I see something that looks good, and sometimes that's a minus, but it's like, especially if you don't speak the language, there's really no way to Google it. Now, if you're traveling domestically, that's a different story. Like, if I'm in a town, I might want to Google, like, which restaurant is the place to go and stuff like this. There's things that could help you. Overall, if I'm traveling, there's obviously a short list of things that I should see in that particular place. Like, if I'm going to South Dakota, obviously you want to see the one thing in South Dakota and the only thing, and there's literally nothing else in South Dakota except, Mount Rushmore, which I have yet to see. It's literally the only reason I would go to South Dakota. Unless I have like a small business maybe where, you don't want any regulation and you can, not pay your workers and stuff like this. But yeah, I would say I'm a centrist on this question because it really depends on the circumstance. You often think about what you should have said in conversation long after it has taken place. I think everybody does to an extent. It's not really what I should have said, it's what I shouldn't have said. Because sometimes I feel like I reveal too much. I'm too self-deprecating in some situations because, I have low self-esteem. So sometimes I feel like, I said too much. But one thing I've learned is that, even people who are generally not too revealing, they always reveal something about themselves. It's just most likely if they're not revealing a lot, it's either because, they're scheming or because they're shallow. If you kind of vary the amount of people you spend time with, that's better than just, spending a whole lot of time with one person, unless you find a real reason to. Yeah, I'll agree with that. If your friend is sad about something, your first instinct is to support them emotionally, not try to solve their problem. Well, you can't solve their problem. They have to do it themselves most of the time. There's no way for you to step in and guide their lives. You can be there for a shoulder to cry on. I think that's important for a couple of minutes at least. I think everybody should practice that sort of empathy in their own lives. To support them emotionally, I think you don't have to support them. You just have to listen. That's the main thing. But I'm not really a huge fan of telling people what to do with their lives. So I would say I'm a centrist on that. People can rarely upset you. It's pretty rare that people genuinely upset me, just because I tend not to get caught up in, the goings on of their minds. It just doesn't interest me. I think generally, if I'm being honest, I think I'm a more interesting person than most people that I run into. There are obvious exceptions. I'm just, most people. You often rely on other people to be the ones to start a conversation and keep it going. I kind of don't give a fuck. I don't really need anything from anybody in terms of conversation. I don't see where that gets me unless it's like money related. And even then, I'd rather they just come to me because I don't see the point in going up to people begging for change. That's some bum shit. So I would disagree. I don't rely on people to really do anything. That's just who I am. If you have to temporarily put your plans on hold, you make sure it is your top priority to get back on track as soon as possible. I'm just kind of, man, I like planning certain things if I can find a way to put them into action. But generally, I'm more like go with the flow right now. Because remember, your personality, in my opinion, is only a reflection of where you're at right now. It can change depending on this, on the ramifications. To get back on track in terms of, evolving yourself, I think that's a fair assessment. So I'll agree with that. I would say it is my top priority is to, improve. You rarely worry if you made a good impression on someone you met. I don't worry. I don't worry about it. So I really don't. I'm going to agree with that. It would be a challenge for you to spend the whole weekend all by yourself without feeling bored. I would say I'm getting better at that, at just finding things to do. Because remember, I came from a really social, comedy lifestyle just a few months ago, or shit. I mean, it's more than a few months. It's been almost a fucking whole year now since COVID shut everything down. And I had a choice in that situation. I could have said, fuck this, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to risk life and limb to make these assholes laugh, which is a 50-50 shot at best. I'm not going to risk my own life with something that I don't even know all the facts on. And even now, there are so many conflicting narratives about it, but we are seeing the cases continue to explode, and it's really just not a good time right now to do that. So, as a result, I've switched to the digital, and I've changed some things in my life. And look, these things take a lot of time. I mean, it is really easier said than done. But I don't do something unless I really want to do it. So it's not really a challenge to feel bored anymore. To not feel bored. You are more of a detail-oriented than a big-picture person. No. I would say I'm a pretty big-picture person, because you kind of have to be in order to push through the details, because so many of the details people get caught up in, and they're just bullshit, They're just like, oh, I have to do this one thing right now, but unless you have a big picture to reference, unless you have a larger vision, you're not going to want to focus on the details, because they're monotonous. You are very affectionate with people you care about. No, not really. I mean, it depends on. It depends. It's kind of like reciprocating. It's like it depends on the vibe that I get from that person. I think my female friends need a certain amount of affection, but men, we don't play that. We G's. You know what I'm saying? We thuggin'. But it's still good to say some things, to say nice things. I don't know if affectionate is the word that I would use. I would say supportive in general. I think supportive is a very good thing. But generally, no, I'm not too affectionate in terms of like touching and stuff like that. I fucking hate that. I think that's more of a generational thing now, because people value their privacy and their personal space. You have a careful and methodical approach to life. Yeah, I would say so. I try not to be too careful. Obviously, just the way I talk, I know I'm very careful in trying to find the right word. So, that includes a lot of pauses. And, that's something that people like great speakers do. Like, for example, Barack Obama, Christopher Hitchens. I think Obama to a lesser extent, because he's really just a fucking asshole. Yeah, careful is accurate, because you have to be. I mean, why wouldn't you be careful? There's so many things that could go wrong. And I'm not talking about just walking down the street and an anarchist mob runs into you. That's not reality. That's just being paranoid. But look, I mean, cops are everywhere. That's one thing you got to watch out for. Obviously, when you drive, you got to be way more careful here than in any other country. Because in other countries, they don't go the speed limit. They don't give a fuck. Get out of the way. They'll hit people. It's chaos. And I kind of wish it was more like that here, where people just had more freedom in terms of, at least in driving. But, that's not the world we live in here in America. The United States. You are still bothered by the mistakes you made a long time ago. Not so much anymore. I mean, occasionally I'll have like a fucking alcoholic flashback to something really stupid I did when I was drunk or said, and but I think I've just come to terms with that, and just let the dead dog fester, I would say I've grown past that. At parties and similar events, you can mostly be found farther away from the action. What? You mean like the dance floor? Like, I'll get on the dance floor and dance if the moment calls for it, but then No, I'm both. I mean, I'm both. There's no way to distinguish. A party is a party. If it's a good party, then who knows? You often find it difficult to relate to people who let their emotions guide them. Um, like overly emotional people, like, oh, something happened to me today, and it's inherently unfair. It's like, yeah, why don't you think about it? Like maybe you're talking. The best example I can think of when talking about this, like overly emotional crybabies, would have to be Twitter. And I'm not assuming that all these people are crybabies in real life, but the fact that they just tweet something so stupid, right? And then put out, I mean, I'm guilty of this too, obviously. But it's like the way they don't think before they say something, and that's really the main problem with social media, is that it doesn't allow for self-reflection, because you really just want to get something out there, almost like an orgasm, like an urge, rather than thinking it through and then coming to a logical conclusion and taking it piece by piece. I don't find it difficult to relate unless the person is actually really stupid, and I've been in this situation. I really don't suffer fools in terms of stupid decision making. I fucking hate that when it's just this person is consistently fucking up, and I can't be involved with that, because that puts me in jeopardy potentially. I've been in plenty of those situations. When looking for a movie to watch, you can spend ages browsing the catalog. I mean, if I'm high, yeah, I suppose. But usually I'll hear about something. It's like somebody says, oh, hey, you gotta watch this, and, so I'm neutral on that. You can stay calm under a lot of pressure. Yes, that's very important. When in a When in a group of people you do not know, you have no problem jumping right into their conversation. What is the situation here? I come across a random group of people on the street. I mean, if you want to do that, like outside the club, for example, in my case, the comedians just hang out and smoke after the club. You usually just go, hey, can I bum a cigarette? Or hey, start smoking, and then you get caught into the hype. That way, that's acceptable to me. But generally, I don't know a lot of people who just walk up, the wild extrovert appears, and just start, hey guys, what did you think? He's like, shut the fuck up. Yeah, you messing with the wrong gang tonight, motherfucker. That's in my case, if you're on the wrong side of town. You don't want to talk to just random thugs hanging on the street corner, buy something or buy some crack or fuck off, man. You have no problem. I don't have a fucking problem with it, but goddamn, these are really stupid questions. When you sleep, your dreams tend to be bizarre and fantastical. Aren't all dreams? Don't they all have some element of bizarreness? Sometimes I don't even dream at all, At least from what I can remember, I don't even dream at all sometimes. In your opinion, it is sometimes okay to step on others to get ahead in life. Yeah. If you want to get ahead, sometimes. You are dedicated and focused on your goals, only rarely getting sidetracked. If the goal is a better life, yes. If you make a mistake, you tend to start doubting yourself, your abilities, or your knowledge. I make a real effort to not let the doubt get to me, and the way you do that really is not giving a fuck. At least that's how I do it. And kind of see, so I let myself know when, I'm full of shit. It's important to be in the quiet moments, like, for example, when you're laying in bed, instead of surfing through apps and consume. Oh, I'm a consumer. I think it's better to meditate, to breathe. Meditate before bed. You don't have to do the fucking yoga shit, but you can, just empty your mind with breathing exercises, and that'll help you get to sleep easier. Lights off, all that, all devices turned off. Unless there's like an alarm clock or something. That's what fucking... I need a fucking alarm clock, dude. But every time I get one, it breaks. It's like the shitty Walmart, so it breaks within like 3 days of my using it. Fucking Chinese. Strike again. Anyway, what was I saying? I tend to start doubting myself. Nah, not really. When at a social event, you rarely try to introduce yourself to new people and mostly talk to the ones you already know. Well, isn't that how you meet new people? By talking to the ones you already know? Usually, I think the best... it's best to have a liaison in a lot of cases, where you have people you know and then they introduce you to new folks. I mean, I imagine that's what usually happens. You don't just jump in with no introduction. Although that can happen too if everyone's drunk enough. Fuck. Ah, shit. I just hit F7 or some shit, so now I gotta start all over. Fuck! You usually lose interest in a discussion when it gets philosophical. No. I mean, aren't all conversations, like, actually civil discussions, aren't they inherently philosophical? I feel like everybody has an underlying philosophy that they then use to what's the word? Fucking work on everything, on the problems, right? Whether it's political or social or like, problem solving, or whether it's just getting fucked up and saying random shit. I mean, like, I feel like it's all philosophical in some sense. I don't lose interest. When it becomes about philosophy, though, if you're talking about philosophy as a concept, then no, I actually find that pretty interesting. Usually, unless it's like some fucking professor, talking out, ancient textbooks, right, that he got in exchange for some head. I don't like snobs. Bro, I'm taking a philosophy class and I'm like learning so much. It's like, yeah, okay, dude, you could have like gone to Wikipedia or some shit, but whatever. Save some money. Whatever. You would never let yourself cry in front of others. In my adult life, my teen and adult life, I certainly have never cried in front of others. I just don't, I don't let myself do that. Absolutely not. I have cried, but I keep it to myself when it happens, which is pretty rare. You feel more drawn to places with a bustling and busy atmosphere than to more quiet and intimate ones. Like in terms of quiet and intimate, I mean, that's all fucking relative, isn't it? Like, if you're in a city, a quiet and intimate atmosphere might be a cinema, right? If you're in a country, a bustling and busy atmosphere is going to be the bar, right? So, I don't really factor that. It's more about it. There are too many other factors to make a judgment call on that one. You like discussing different views and theories on what the world could look like in the future. Yes, and also I do like discussing the options that we have right now. I mean, that's part of the reason why I do political commentary at all. It's not because I give a shit. It's because there are legitimately different paths that we can choose to get specific outcomes. And I find that interesting. Like, if this person gets elected, it'll be slight variation of something else. But, if we forgo the election, for example, if we take to the streets and have a general strike, which I'm for, then you're going to have a different outcome. You're going to start seeing more workers take ownership of their wages and of, I mean, that's a far-fetched example, but you get the point. When it comes to making life-changing choices, you mostly listen to your heart rather than your head. I don't. What the fuck is this? Who even knows? It's not. You don't listen to. Those organs are not capable of listening to, unless you're like, you have a heart condition or you're feeling pain. But those are literally just organs. Those are parts of your body. It has nothing to do with brain activity. You could say brain. And I know I'm taking these questions kind of literally, but I mean, that is what it is. I object to the wording of some of these questions. You could tell this shit was made for, like, your average Joe, and not that that's a bad thing. That actually increases the accessibility of it, because some people really don't want to think too much, and that's also, I get the feeling, what this personality test is going for and identifying. You cannot imagine yourself dedicating your life to the study of something that you cannot see, touch, or experience. Well, if you can't experience something in some form, then how the fuck are you supposed to study it? That doesn't make sense. Even an idea, like, say, communism, for example, just the first thing that comes to mind. Because people talk about it a lot. Some people think that we're experiencing it, others do not. Some people believe in it, others do not. Same thing with God, or, supernatural entities. But if you cannot see, touch, or in some way experience it, you can experience God personally, but you cannot see or touch him. There is no proof of actual physical evidence of being able to, come into contact with ghostly beings. That doesn't... so I cannot really imagine seeing something like that happen. You usually prefer to get your revenge rather than forgive. I have sought revenge in some cases, but it was really easy. It was really, like, basic shit. I didn't have to do much. It's more like, some people literally put themselves in positions to get fucked, and then I'm just like, okay, am I gonna fuck this person? Because that's a logical thing to do, because I feel like they deserve it. Like, I could do the right thing and go out on a limb, but then what? I'm just entering the cycle of destruction again, and it really... But, nowadays, and certainly in most cases, when you're dealing with functioning human beings, it's better to forgive. Not, like, in the sense, like, oh, what you did was okay, but for yourself. Forgiveness is not for the other person. People make the mistake of thinking that it's for the other person who did you wrong. Forgiveness is for yourself, so that you can let go of that hate, so that you can be objective and examine the situation as it occurred and let it go. Just accept the reality of what happened. That's what forgiveness is for. It's about acceptance of the past, so that you can move on with your life. So I wouldn't say generally I prefer revenge. I think that, especially if the other person has a way of striking back, it's just not a good look. You often make decisions on a whim. I mean, sometimes, like, for example, if I want to hit this dab pen, or, e-cig, if I want to hit this e-cig, that's a whim. If I want to wipe my nose, if I want to drink this water, yes, no shit, I make decisions on a whim. But they're also necessary. But you don't even think about that until you've already made the choice. That's when you start overthinking things. The time you spend by yourself often ends up being more interesting and satisfying than the time you spend with other people. This is actually true. It's also more laborious and torturous because sometimes especially during COVID, I've cut myself off from a lot of people, and because of not just because of COVID, but because of my living predicament, I'm basically in a new setting that I'm not familiar with. And it's not ideal, but I'm moving towards a goal, and I'm gonna meet that goal, and then I'm gonna move into a more, it's a fucking process. It's a fucking process, and I hate people who are just like, oh, you have to do this, so if I was you, I would. Yeah, well, you're not me, stupid. So shut the fuck up. You know? Just because something worked for you or didn't work for you doesn't mean it's not going to work for somebody else. Different things work for different people. People just. I hate people who are just like, who plant, even, who plant their own experiences onto the world. Even in subtle cases, you kind of have to just be able to assert yourself in a calm, steady way, of course, to assert your will in whatever social setting that you're talking about, right? Especially when you're talking about personal matters. You often put special effort into interpreting the real meaning or the message of a song or a movie. I mean, it depends on the movie, it depends on the piece of art and how it resonates with me. Generally, unless I'm really reviewing it, because I've reviewed works of art, and I think that's fun for a while, but I wouldn't make a career out of reviewing stuff, because ultimately at the end of the day I'm an independent artist, and I think critics have their place. I think I know of a lot of good critics out there, but I wouldn't make a profession out of it because I have my own skills that my own art that I want to put front and center rather than spend my whole day judging others, and what they're doing. But so generally, I think first impressions are more important than the real meaning. So I don't put special effort into interpreting it, the real meaning of it, because there has to be some sort of there has to be a hook, basically, and that's what's always been popular. You have to have a style before you get to the substance. You always know exactly what you want. I don't. And you could argue that that's one of my main weaknesses. Not specifically what I want. I mean, specifically what I want varies. Like, what I want in this moment, I can't be sure. What I want in the long term, obviously, is the same thing that everybody else wants, a better life. And I have a few conditions, such as, my art be appreciated, that my personality, my public persona be appreciated. And what that is actually a way to sort of distract from the private scandals. You rarely think back on the choices you made and wonder what you could have done differently. Of course. Well, when in a public place, you usually stick to quieter and less crowded areas. I mean, you kind of have to at this point, don't you? You tend to focus on present realities rather than future possibilities. Yeah, well, the future possibilities are always somewhere. Well, no, because it's a two-part system, fucker. You have to accept reality, and then it's the only way to get to the future possibility. So you can't have one without the other. That doesn't make any sense. You often have a hard time understanding other people's feelings. Not really, as long as they're well expressed. I think it has to do with the level at which people can express their feelings. If people are not good at expressing themselves, like maybe if you're overly autistic or something like that, then you're going to have a harder time understanding them, of course. Maybe that's what they want, maybe it's not, but I think everybody on some level wishes to be understood. They just don't really have the skills to get there. It really is a skill. Understanding people, not just empathy, but being able to convey what you're saying is very difficult. Like in my case, it can be very difficult when I get stuck on something in a video where I have an idea that I want to get across and I just need to find the right words to do it. And all I can say, man, is language is key. You have to find the right language to be able to express yourself in any given scenario. That's one of the most important skills that you can develop in life. So if I have a hard time understanding people's feelings, then that's on them. So I'm going to go neutral on that one. When starting to work on a project, you prefer to make as many decisions upfront as possible. Again, it depends on the fucking project. Just fuck this question. I'm not going to answer. When you know someone thinks highly of you, you also wonder how long it will be until they become disappointed in you. Oh yeah, of course. Of course I wonder about that, but the thing is, I don't care. Nor should the person in question care. It's like, there's a lot of dumb motherfuckers out there who still look up to people, who still believe that we need to be led, right? I don't care. You feel comfortable just walking up to someone you find interesting and striking up a conversation. Yeah, I mean, if usually this applies to women. I don't just walk up to a guy and that I don't know. You don't. If you find someone interesting, it's usually because you find them attractive. Like, if it's just on the front end, then that's usually the reason. I feel comfortable in that situation. If I do it, then I do it for a reason, because I'm trying to get some poontang, you know what I'm saying? But it also has to be the right circumstances, too. You know, it's not as easy as just forcing yourself into something that feels unnatural. Like, for example, if you feel unnatural in a loud bar setting like I do, you know, you're going to... I feel like I would fare better in a professional setting, in a professional environment, or in a group of friends, rather than, you know, just like, oh, I don't know anybody, I'm just, or even, oh, I'm going with a friend and we're gonna slay tonight. Yeah, that never happens. Get the fuck out of here. You often drift away into daydreaming about various ideas or scenarios. I mean, that's where comedy comes from, man. You look after yourself first, and others come in second. I mean, you fucking have to. Even when you have planned a particular daily routine, you usually just end up doing what you feel like at any given moment. Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. My life is literally just a series of fucking detours and left turns. And maybe that'll change, but for now, you know. Your mood can change very quickly. I wouldn't really call myself bipolar. Usually takes some time, but there are exceptions, depending on the circumstance. You often contemplate the reasons for human existence or the meaning of life. Yeah, I think to some extent, yes, to some extent. Not as much nowadays, because I'm just kind of settled in. You often talk about your own feelings and emotions. I try to distill my emotions into a context with logic. I don't just say I feel this, because I feel like that's kind of banal. But if I can relate it to something that I feel is more interesting, then essentially what I am talking about is a feeling, right? Everybody talks about their feelings. But to get people interested in their feelings is different. I feel like women have more trouble with this in general than men do. But I mean, the women I do talk to tend to talk about their feelings more, obviously. And in that scenario, it really depends. It really depends on what I can produce. Sometimes it's good to talk about your feelings. I think men should talk about their feelings more often, but I think the way we do it should be constantly refined. So at the end of the day, judgment is more important than feelings, but it's good to talk about your feelings. You have got detailed education or career development plans stretching several years into the future. Career... I don't agree with that language. When I hear the words education and career, it's just bullshit. I mean, I feel like Yes and no, because in another context, if you use another word, like instead of education, for example, you use skills, because that is an education in and of itself. I do believe learning is very important. I do believe acquiring experience. I would say experience is more important than education. And imagination, secondly. Imagination is extremely important. It's actually one of the most important things. Career development plans. Yes, I do have those too. But it's not solid. It's not like linear. I'll slightly agree with that. It's a shitty question. You rarely dwell on your regrets. Dwelling, I think, is unhealthy, so I'm going to say yes, I rarely do that. Spending time in a dynamic atmosphere with lots of people around quickly makes you feel drained and in need of a getaway. I mean, it depends. I mean, got Coke? I mean, I'm not saying, like, or you got, like, or coffee, or... The wording of this question, again, is just too vague to answer properly. You see yourself as more of a realist than a visionary. I don't see those as opposites, so I neither agree nor disagree. You find it easy to empathize with a person who has gone through something you never have. I empathize on a very basic level. I don't think you can empathize unless you actually can replicate the experience somewhat. Your personal work style is closer to spontaneous bursts of energy than to organized and consistent efforts. Again, I do not see those as direct opposites, so I'm going to skip that. Your emotions control you more than you control them. No. After a long and exhausting week, a fun party is just what you need. I feel like people who party on the weekends are generally people who hate their jobs, right? I'm not saying all of them, and believe me, I'm down for a fine ass banger, but I've kind of raised my standards. Like, it's not just about, oh, let's get fucked up. I hate those guys. I hate those people who just like, oh, I've just been breaking my ass all weekend. Oh, okay, yeah, cry about it. As they're drinking. Like, aren't we supposed to be having fun? What the fuck is wrong with you? You're such a bore. But, not necessarily. I do not need a fun party to have fun. But, you know, under the right circumstances, I'm not going to turn it down. You frequently find yourself wondering how technological advancement could change everyday life. I guess relatively to the average person, yeah, I do think about technology and how it's advancing us. Because that's really the shape of the economy right now, isn't it? I mean, we literally rely on technology to even speak to each other a lot of the time because we're out of a job, or, you know, we got school or we got work, and that's shifted to the Zoom chats. You always consider how your actions might affect other people before doing something. Yeah, of course, that's a consideration. It's not the only one, but it's there. You still honor the commitments you have made, even if you have a change of heart. I don't generally make commitments. If I do make a commitment, it's to myself. You know, if I have an honest change of heart or change of mind, then hey, I'm going that way. Fuck what I thought before, because I'm better educated. You rarely feel insecure. Like, I have general social anxiety, but I don't think it's like a medical condition. I think the circumstances that we live in are overwhelming, and that takes a lot of pressure off of me to blame myself for things that I have no control over. You shouldn't do that. I'm gonna say yes. Okay. Oh shit.